Hello everyone, welcome everyone, welcome. I would like to start out by saying all constitutional rights invoked, none waived for this video. You guys know the drill. What I'm going to talk about briefly is I want to talk about something called protective orders. Protective orders, a lot of times they have different names depending on what state you're in. You have civil protection orders, restraining orders, etc., etc. Okay. Now we're going to jump right into it. I just want to state a couple of facts very briefly about the purpose of a restraining order or a purpose of a protection order or a protective order or order of protection. Generally, a restraining order or an order of protection is a tool that is used to prevent physical harm. Okay? It's a tool to predominantly prevent physical harm. So, for example, if you have a domestic violence situation, a lot of times, once there has been a documented domestic violence situation or an attempted domestic violence situation, then a restraining order is necessary, or an order of protection is very necessary at that juncture. Now, I want to get into explaining how these work because a lot of people are confused of what that is, or how that is issued, or how are those granted. Now, generally, a protective order is issued or a restraining order is issued if there can be documented facts that correlates with domestic violence or attempted domestic violence, or maybe someone threatened you and said they were going to do something to you, etc., etc. Now, in those situations, the protective order would be necessary, or the restraining order. Now, I want to talk about how you would go about challenging a protective order or a restraining order. A lot of times a restraining order or a protective order is not issued unless there can be a documented fact that would substantiate a purpose of issuing that order. Because an order of protection, an order of such, is a key component into keeping someone safe from physical harm. Okay? Safe from physical harm. And in some cases, you could have an order of protection issued if you have a person that is making threats towards you, and that person has a history of violence, or that person has a history of carrying a firearm, etc., etc. So I want to speak about the ways how you would approach it if someone filed a protection order against you. If someone filed a protective order or an order of such against you, you would challenge that order by disputing any fact that does not relate to physical harm or threats, or mostly physical harm or threats. So a lot of times these type of orders are abused. Okay? A lot of times these orders of such are abused, and in some cases the courts will generally just go ahead and issue an emergency order if there is a certain amount of showing of danger, and that is pretty much done in a ex parte hearing in front of a judge without the opposing party being available. Now again, a lot of things have to be in the record to support that. Okay? If the record is absent anything that would support that, then you would have a problem, okay? Then there is a way to nullify that protective order, okay? All right, so I want to say that those are very, very, very important pieces of information to know, because a lot of times a person can use a restraining order or a protective order in an abusive way to abuse a person, or just to act as a nuisance, or to use it for a purpose in which it was not intended, okay, which is abuse. Now, I want to talk about experience that I had with a order of protection. I actually had an order of protection that was issued against me. Okay, last week there was an order of protection issued against me, and you know, I'm pretty well versed on the law, as many of you guys know. I pretty much know how all of that stuff works. Now, I was able to have that order of protection dismissed and nullified because the record was absent certain key components that would make the protection order, make the order kind of faulty, if you will. All right, so it was fairly easy to do, and it was actually nullified 48 hours after it was issued. It was immediately dismissed. So I want to tell you guys how you go about doing that. Again, you would want to look at the facts, because anytime an order is issued by a court, there would have to be present certain things that will be factual, certain factual information that will allow the order to stand on what I call a four-legged table. Okay? A four-legged table. A four-legged table, I like to talk about that, you know, with some people that I talk about the law with, because again, a four-legged table is going to hold up. A three-legged table is not. So if you have a order of protection that was issued and it is absent a four-legged table, then, of what I call a four-legged table, then it won't stand, because again, these tools are abused by people and used for nefarious purposes, or purpose in which they were not intended to achieve a certain outcome of whatever agenda. So a lot of you watching, without me going into specifics, you know what I'm speaking of, and I just wanted to clear the record, and I wanted to let you guys know that if you're ever in a situation where someone put a restraining order or a order of protection on you, you want to make sure that they went in there with certain facts, okay? Because like I said, a lot of times these things can be abused. You know, a lot of these components can be abused for purposes in which they were not intended for, and used for purposes in which they're not intended for. So again, you want to look at the facts that were reported, and that's where you would want to target on how to undo that, because that can be that can affect you in a major way. For example, if you work at, let's say you work at McDonald's, and you have a coworker that works there, and they filed a civil protection order or a restraining order against you, that could affect how you are scheduled on that job when that other person is there. That could affect if you will even be allowed to continue to work that job. That could affect the timing, because you're not allowed to have contact with the person's workplace or home a lot of times, in most cases. And a lot of times if you're out in a store and that person is in a store, and you know that that person is in a store and they have a protection order on you, you have to leave. So it could be used to really humiliate. It could be used to really humiliate you. So that's why it's very important to understand that if that ever happens to you, you want to look at the facts. Now, we do have a website that will be up. Like I said, I won't be announcing it in this video, but we do have a website that's coming, and it is going to basically provide tools that you can use in your everyday life, certain legal tools that will allow you to maneuver through certain situations and address certain situations in a DIY manner, in a do-it-yourself manner. And in the last video, I talked about the importance of not using an attorney to handle certain things. Once the common people and the layman gets used to using certain legal components like affidavits, certain motions, and once they familiarize themselves with that, I think the environment will change as a whole. But if we relegate everything to needing an attorney, then we kind of prevent ourselves from really learning how effective these tools can really be, because we're leaving it to someone else to really handle it. But I think it's really important that we know how to address these tools and know how to address situations using these tools, because that's what they're there for, okay? And a lot of that has to be studied independently unless you are a law school student. But yeah, the protection orders, civil protection orders, restraining orders, those things can be really, they could be a big nuisance if you allow them to. But yeah, I just wanted to come on here and share my experience with, I had one put on me last week and it was immediately tossed out. It was immediately tossed out. I was able to use certain facts, okay, to support why it should be thrown out. If you have any questions or concerns about protective orders or restraining orders or civil protection orders, then you can enter at the comment section below, and I will be obliged to address any questions in regards to that. Let me see, do I have anything else? Again, we do have a website coming, and it is going to be filled with lots of goodies that you can use. For example, how to properly handle yourself in a traffic stop, how to increase your chances of getting your writ of certiorari accepted in the United States Supreme Court, the importance of injunctions, what a writ of habeas corpus is, and how to utilize a writ of habeas corpus, and also how to structure and how to use a writ of mandamus, okay? So it's a lot of key things in there. And if you're not a law school student, or if you're not an attorney, or if you're not in the legal field, you probably won't know what that is. But we break all of that down for you on the site. We'll break it down for you. And again, more than likely in the next video, well, not the next video, but the one after that, we will be sharing the site, and you guys can check it out and look at the different keys that's available to you. But I want to say all constitutional rights invoked, none waived again, and you guys enjoy your lovely, lovely, lovely rest of the day, and I'll enjoy mine. Thank you, and au revoir.